A former middle school teacher now behind bars on shocking allegations from both inside and outside the classroom. But this case is years in the making, with a consensual adult relationship on the surface allegedly turning into a shocking family affair that will make your stomach turn. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. So the man you see here is 41-year-old Daniel Le Lievre, facing a judge in a yellow jumpsuit this week, learning he will be held in jail without bond on felony charges. 2 years ago, the father of two was a career and technical teacher at Tuscaloosa Middle School in Seminole County, Florida, just weeks shy from being put on administrative leave. This is where he will never return to the classroom again. Now, we have the arrest report on this case that details the allegations against him. And yes, he's innocent until proven guilty, but we got to talk about this, okay? Because this arrest report, and yes, it's the law enforcement's perspective, it's their report, it's their investigation. It provides an in-depth look that I will tell you, even just listening to the allegations, will leave you speechless. And we're going to break everything down, step by step, with an attorney from the Sunshine State, because this is a story that is much darker than anyone could have imagined. It's February 4th, 2026. A detective from the Oviedo Police Department is about to conduct an interview with a woman who is romantically involved with Le Lievre. The woman told police, or apparently told police, they started dating in October 2023, and over the course of the relationship, the woman and her children would spend the night at Le Lievre's residence, including the entire duration of winter break, which was roughly 2 weeks between December and January. So far, everything seems normal, right? The relationship's progressing, they're spending the night together. It even appeared to reach a place where her children spent a significant amount of time with him as well. Here's the missing detail, okay? The missing detail is that Le Lievre was the teacher of at least one of her children. And here's where the story takes a chilling alleged turn. According to the report, the woman accused Le Lievre of grooming her 13-year-old daughter through multiple methods, including spending alone time in his classroom before, during, and after school, holding hands, hugging each other. So I have a lot to break down. I want to get into this. Let me bring on civil litigation attorney Chris Klotz to talk about this. First of all, thanks for taking the time. When you hear allegations of grooming, we talk about it a lot. It feels sometimes like a nebulous term. What exactly do you have to show in a case to prove grooming per se?
Well, so there's always the thing that kind of comes to mind is the depth and the length of the connection, before the interactions. Like, a father and a daughter having, holding hands or something like that, maybe at 13 is maybe a little bit old, I suppose, but you really have to look at the whole context of the situation. Those type of things happening in a new relationship, and my understanding is that this relationship was 3 or 4 months old, maybe less than that, for between this man and this woman. When you have contact like that between an older child and somebody's child in a new relationship, it's kind of a red flag. And I noted that, in reading the police report and reading some of the other data sources, there was allegations that they were on the telephone late at night with one another, and the mom caught her doing that on a couple of instances. I'm just not sure, when would it be appropriate for a mom's daughter to be having conversation with her new boyfriend at late at night. I'm not going to say that situation might not ever occur if there has to be some type of exchange late at night, but on a regular basis, telephone calls late at night, holding hands with an older child like that, moving classes around is what I understand also happened in this case.
Yep.
It's a combination of the things and kind of the background context that really can make it grooming or not. Because again, there are instances of affection between parents and children that's not grooming conduct, but when you take it in a context of a new relationship, those things can be red flags.
All right, before we go on, I gotta give a quick shout out to our partner, CyberGhost VPN. Why? Have you ever hesitated to connect to public Wi-Fi like in a restaurant, an airport, work, school, because you're scared that someone might steal your information? Totally valid. The truth is, eyes are watching you every time you go online. But there's a solution. CyberGhost VPN. You can select one of their hundreds of locations before you browse, and they'll encrypt everything through their secure servers. So this way, no one can track your online activity. It works on up to 7 devices at once, so you can share with family and friends. And with just a couple clicks, CyberGhost unlocks exclusive geo-restricted content from over 40 major streamers like Netflix and Prime. And with over 38 million users worldwide and a nearly perfect rating on Trustpilot, CyberGhost is one of the most recommended VPNs out there. And look, if you're still not sure, there's a 45-day money-back guarantee and an 84% discount plus 4 months free with a link in my description. So that's just $2.03 a month to protect your privacy and enjoy unlimited content. Don't wait. Click the link in the description and start browsing safely with CyberGhost VPN. Let's go into that. Let's dive into this because I want to go back to the police report. The allegations continue to get even worse. So the woman told police, or allegedly told police, that Le Lievre would rub her daughter's thighs, speak on the phone with her in the middle of the night on several occasions, like you said, caught him holding her daughter's hand while on a trip to Disney Springs, and even allegedly made a bank account in her daughter's name and added money to it. Now, first of all, before we go any further, Chris, a lot of these allegations in these cases, there might not be forensic proof, right? Forensic material if you're talking about physical contact. But if you're talking about a bank account and it's a questionable bank account, there's records of that.
Sure. Well, again, not everything in isolation, might be, there might be a rational explanation. Like, say, for instance, somebody's putting money for a lunch account or something like that, and there was some kind of arrangement that they had for that. But when you get the combination of these things all closely tied in time proximity and inappropriateness, they all add up to be significant red flags. There's questions. Also, there's some reports of, throwaway email accounts or throwaway, websites where there was an ability to hide the communication. That is a humongous red flag. Now, that by itself is telling.
So, yeah, so I want to keep it in mind, according to the report, this all happened or allegedly happened during the course of this relationship. So now we fast forward to January 2024. I want to get into this a little more. So you're roughly 3 months later, and this relationship between two adults officially ends. But here's the part. What Le Lievre allegedly reveals is next level. So shocking. The report says, quote, when the woman and Le Lievre broke up, he told her daughter that he only dated her mom so that he could, quote, get close to her. Now, so far, by the way, before we even go any further, Chris, again, I keep throwing you into this but I've
Sure.
made a questions. Is this going to be a lot based on the testimony of this girl? Is she going to have to take the stand and be that connective tissue?
Yeah, and so we actually, we had this kind of conversation maybe a few weeks ago with another case where there's no forensic evidence. Sometimes there's not forensic evidence, right? In many inappropriate sexual relationships, there's going to be some type of medical evidence, or maybe some type of tissue, or some type of DNA, or some type of maybe bruising or something that's physical evidence. From what I've read in all the police reports, and again, of course, we're talking allegedly, right? Because we're going from police reports, but from everything that I've seen, this is another one of those cases where there's no forensic evidence that's of a physical nature, right? So again, we're going back to statements, and if that statement is brought in court, I think this is going to be a very, very difficult case for a jury to not convict somebody on, right? I mean, with all of the other evidence that's going to come in about the throwaway or dummy email accounts and the communications and the instructing the little girl, to delete certain messages between them. That kind of stuff weighs very, very heavily on juries. And this is going to be a tough case to win at trial.
So as far as we have with these allegations, a lot of it is coming from the girl's mother. We're talking, again, persistent physical and verbal contact, claims of financial assistance, and it's starting to sound more and more like grooming, which we talked about, or allegations of grooming. But the officers need to get the story from the teen herself, right? So the police report reveals they did just that. That same day, February 4th, 2026, a forensic interview was conducted with this 13-year-old girl where she allegedly recounts an even more terrifying experience with the former teacher. She stated that one night before Christmas Day in 2023, when she was staying at Le Lievre's residence, she woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. She did not lock the door due to everyone being asleep. While she was washing her hands, Le Lievre came into the bathroom. While in the bathroom, Le Lievre told her to take off all her clothes. After Le Lievre told her to get naked, Le Lievre got on top of her on the bathroom floor. And then I don't have to get into more description here. You can understand that we're talking about sexual contact or alleged sexual contact, but sexual intercourse that lasted about 10 minutes. The girl stated that during her encounter with Le Lievre, she did not say anything. She only complied with his requests. She said Le Lievre also did not say anything during the sexual battery. Le Lievre then stopped and told her to put her clothes back on. And before leaving the bathroom, Le Lievre told her not to tell anyone what happened. She stated she does not remember what Le Lievre was wearing, but does not believe he took his clothes off. Again, this is a very serious set of allegations. So Chris, I go back to you. I'm at a loss for words for this. I do wonder, I go back to this whenever I hear about the alleged sexual abuse or grooming of children, and you have to wonder if the case is really made upon their testimony. Don't prosecutors want to avoid having to put them on the stand at all costs and having to go through this?
Yeah. So if, there are mechanisms in the state of Florida to reduce the anxiety load on young people who have to testify. And if a prosecutor can make a case without having to put a child through that process, that's always the most preferred way. But in this case, because there's not really any type of rape kit or DNA sample that was able to be collected right after the incident, there's a very high likelihood that this young lady is going to have to testify at trial. And there are ways that courts can make that less impactful on the child as far as having them be re-traumatized. It can be done sometimes through a video link up. It can be done sometimes in a way where the courtroom has been cleared to make it less pressure. There are ways to do that, but this is probably one of those cases where the prosecutors will probably end up having to put her on the stand.
I want to go to the other alleged evidence in this case, including physical evidence. So I go back to the police report. Le Lievre apparently had the login to the girl's school accounts and allegedly made scheduling changes to have her added to another one of his classes without the knowledge or consent of her mother. It goes on to say that Le Lievre made 2 different websites to secretly communicate with the girl and even taught her Morse code so they could communicate to each other undetected. Le Lievre also created what he called throwaway email addresses to secretly communicate with her. In multiple different conversations, Le Lievre instructed her to delete records of the conversations and clear history and delete trash files, further attempting to hide his communication with her. And the police report claims that Le Lievre was under investigation twice with the Seminole County Public Schools School Board over the course of his tenure between August 4th, 2022 and May 3rd, 2024, stemming from the allegations that we mentioned so far. And according to those probes, the allegations were, quote, supported by sufficient preponderance of the evidence. And as a result, Le Lievre was placed on administrative leave on April 26, 2024, and the district said he resigned in lieu of termination and is not eligible for rehire. But you fast forward to Monday, March 30th, so now 2 years later, police are at his front door, arresting him on felony charges of sex assault by a custodian, including sexual battery of a victim 12 to 18 years old, and a sex offense involving an authority figure soliciting and engaging in a romantic and sexual relationship with a student. Chris, a lot of people look at this and say, why the delay?
Yeah, so again, I've seen this time after time where teachers have been grooming children's students, and somehow the teachers seem to have access to change the child's schedule. I don't understand why there's not some more control or more attention giving to teachers being able to change children's schedules to place them in their path. This is not the first case where I've seen that happen, where a teacher has manipulated a child's schedule to put them in their class or take them out of another class and have them be somewhere where they're more available. That is something that school systems should be on top of. And also, the fact that this gentleman had been already found. I'm trying to figure out what the right word is. The fact that this gentleman had already been found in 2 prior instances to have acted inappropriately. How do you get that information out to the public? So maybe that would have made a difference to this mother to know that, in going into a relationship with a new person. How could a mom have had had access to that type of information to say, hey, I see this guy's got a history of being inappropriate with students. I've got students that are in his school. Is this a relationship that I want to engage in? How do you get that information out to the public? Because maybe that would have made a difference to her before she placed her children, in the path of this person that obviously she trusted, and maybe talked a really good game with her, or maybe somehow, gained her confidence enough to bring her and her children into his house over Christmas. So that information's out there. I mean, why can we not get that type of information out for people to have in their hands?
But I guess it also matters if you're talking about why the charges were brought now. It takes a minute to build up an investigation like this, right? I mean, it takes a minute to build up
Sure.
all of this evidence and having the interviews. And, I talk about the bank records and also under the school data. So I guess it does take a minute to build up all this, to build a case like this, because the charges that he's
Yeah.
facing are quite serious, right? I mean, do you even know what the punishment could be for these kinds of charges?
Yeah, I mean, and these are first degree felonies, so I mean, they're the most serious cases that there are. And you have got a really good point about the timing. So if you're going to try to get a subpoena to get email records or records of emails being created and destroyed, that can take weeks and weeks. If you're trying to get the bank records that they subpoenaed, obviously, to try to find whether or not there had been some type of bank account that was created, doing a subpoena by the police department to get those documents, that can take weeks and weeks to do. And then if they're doing interviews of people, maybe they've gone back and interviewed the people from the two earlier allegations to see exactly what happened in those cases for the criminal case. Yeah, it's not a surprise that there's sometimes months and months that go by in order to bring a case, because they want to bring a strong case, right?
Yeah.
This is not a case where they have a semen DNA sample that came, on the eve of the sexual battery, with a medical examination where they've got DNA evidence that is happening, almost in real time. This is a circumstantial case with statements, and so they're having to put it together. And I'm sure law enforcement wants to make sure that they do a good job and have a tight case.
Now, a lot of people who are watching this might be saying, wait a second, did the defendant, did Le Lievre, say anything? Did he say anything to maybe explain himself, explain away the situation? Well, here is what we have learned from the police report. Post Miranda, I asked Le Lievre if he knew why he was here, and he said he did not. I advised Le Lievre that I wanted to speak with him about an incident involving the teen girl. Le Lievre then questioned about what? I advised an allegation of sexual battery. Le Lievre nodded his head in a yes motion. I then asked Le Lievre if he wanted to talk about it, and Le Lievre stated that's probably not a good idea without a lawyer. So the answer is he didn't say much of anything. Sometimes silence can speak more than words, because, Chris, the question becomes, and it's so difficult, right? Everybody reacts to allegations differently. Now,
Right.
some could interpret this in saying, okay, he's innocent. I mean, look, he is innocent until proven guilty, of course. But some could say he had nothing to do with this. He's like, okay, I got to protect my rights here. I have to ask for a lawyer. Other people will say, based on that account, and this is, by the way, law enforcement's account, did he not seem shocked? Did he not say, what on earth is this about? Oh my gosh, I'm completely innocent. Let me explain everything. Two different reactions there. Your thoughts?
So, and in my career, I've done a lot of criminal representation in my career. I've seen people react in all different ways. And some people have that righteous indignation where they're like, I didn't do that. And sometimes that's real and sometimes that's not real. Or sometimes people have a very flat affect, which appears kind of what happened in this particular case, and they may be innocent or guilty. So I don't really take the response of somebody when they're confronted by the police necessarily to be the end all be all of whether they're have a guilty conscience or not, because everybody reacts differently. Some people freeze up. Being in a police environment for a lot of people is very scary and new and unfamiliar. And so somebody gets really quiet. I don't necessarily take that to mean anything. Honestly, as somebody who's done criminal defense before, having a client who says, I would rather not make a statement until my lawyer is here is exactly what you're supposed to do if you're being confronted with a very serious case. So, and that particular statement may or may not even be admissible when you're asserting your Fifth Amendment right. That may not even come in front of a jury.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And yeah, I don't know if this would be particularly helpful or relevant for the prosecution's case. The bigger question is, where does this former teacher go from here, right? So the same day of his arrest, Le Lievre made his first court appearance. This is where a judge decided to hold him in the Seminole County Jail without bond. He's due for his arraignment on May 26, but according to his court docket, there was a waiver of arraignment and a plea of not guilty has been submitted into the record. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens there. But Chris, no bond. Is that surprising?
No, that's not really surprising because it appears, I think I remember something in the police report about there having had been some type of injunction, some type of stay away injunction.
Yeah, actually, no, you're right. So according to the police report, there was already an active injunction out of Seminole County against Le Lievre for the woman and her family. It's active until May 7th of this year. So how does that play into it?
Yeah, so if there had been any type of violation of that injunction and maybe trying to contact the child to tell her to destroy records or destroy old emails or get rid of that stuff, if there had been any contact of that nature, and I don't know that, so I'm speculating right now, right?
Sure.
But if there had been any contact in violation of that injunction, that would be something that a judge could consider and whether or not to grant a bond in the criminal case or not. It's not uncommon on a very, very serious case like this, especially when there's been a relationship between an adult and a child that's inappropriate, for a judge to really think long and hard about what conditions are going to be the safest for the child if I give this opportunity for the accused person to get out. And so usually what's going to happen, the fact that he did a not guilty and a waiver of arraignment, that's pretty standard operating procedure in Florida. The fact that he doesn't have a bond is a little bit unusual because in most instances, you're entitled to have some type of bond, even if it's very, very high bond. But in this case, I'm sure the judge just wants to make sure that if he sets a bond, he or she, the judge, sets a bond that is obtainable, that there are precautions put in place to protect the child and also to protect the case, because it's already been shown, according to the police report, that this man is willing to destroy evidence or manipulate the case. And so they want to make sure that the child is safe, number one, that the mother is safe, and that the case is not somehow manipulated if he's able to get out.
So look, as we wait to see how this unfolds, I have to ask you one more question from a litigation point of view. We're all wondering how others in the community are maybe reacting to this situation, because these are very disturbing allegations. So the Seminole County Public Schools has responded to this with the following statement: the safety of our students and staff is our highest priority, and any type of behavior that undermines that safety will not be tolerated at Seminole County Public Schools. I didn't check to see if there was any form of litigation at this point. Maybe you did. I didn't see it. But are they worried right now? Are they concerned? Seminole County Public Schools, that district?
When you have a teacher that has got 2 prior notes of inappropriate behavior with students, and then you have a third that ends up being something with this gravity, of course, they're going to be in a posture where they're wondering whether or not there's going to be some type of litigation about this. The fact that a lot of this grooming conduct appears to have happened on school grounds, if I was a school system, I would be very concerned about that. And you know what? I'd be taking some steps to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. Don't give teachers access to move children around within the school, so they land in their path. Have a double check or check and balance on that if a schedule is changed for a child. If a student is having, if a student's parent is having a relationship with the teacher, and those kind of things, I know they're personal and private, but collectively with all the things that were happening at the school, certainly there's at least a plausible argument that the school should have had some type of notice that there was something wrong going on with this teacher historically. And then if the teacher is putting his hands on his thigh or on the young lady's thigh and holding her hands and manipulating her school schedule in the school, that tons of red flags there for the school system.
That's a good point. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it.
Always happy to be here. Thanks.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you next time, everybody. Stay private, stay secure, unlock global content. Get CyberGhost VPN now with 84% off plus 4 months free, risk-free with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Click the link in the description and start protecting your digital life today.